Mike. Good morning, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'd like a motion and a second to grant a leave of absence to 3 of our commissioners who are out of town, Commissioners Adams, Devon, and Nemi. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, and Commissioner Luther is joining us virtually. I'd like a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of June 11 and the special commission meeting of June 24. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good morning, Curtis.
Good morning, Commissioner, President, Madam President.
Wherever I am, Katie.
Your Highness. You ready for me? Thank you. I'm sorry to have missed our special commission meeting, but like Richard Nixon, I'm back, tanned, rested, and ready. It is really good to see everyone here today. Thanks for your time. I would like to, if I could, first acknowledge the Port's monthly safety champions up here on the board. You'll see Dean and Kira and Chad and Bruce from all parts of the Port, just some great examples of Port employees who are engaging from their own space in the Port on safety issues. Dean, for example, an engineer who caught a safety issue when he was out on a project. Kira, who's, we keep describing her as new to the Port, but she's no longer new to the Port. Now she's a seasoned professional, but she's on the marine side of the business and has been super helpful engaging with safety committee, Chad out on the dredge, and Bruce in maintenance, just really focusing on what they can control and things that they can do to keep the space safe. So thanks to those 4 this month, and congratulations on being monthly safety champions. If I could have Beverly Pierman come forward for us. Beverly's our public safety and security director, as you all know, and she's going to give us our monthly safety message. Good morning, Bev.
Good morning. Good morning. As Chris said, now I am. Beverly Pierman, Director of Public Safety and Security. I'm accountable for occupational safety, health, and wellness in our police, fire, aviation security, emergency management, and airport communications departments. The 160 Port employees in these organizations are primarily frontline workers who can encounter very different hazards and safety concerns than other Port employees. And as you can hear Police Chief Wallace say multiple times in the terminal a day, safety is our highest priority. To show that commitment to employee safety and health, I'd like to highlight some accomplishments of both the police and fire department over the last year. Both of these departments had 100% closure rates on their corrective action plans for reported safety incidents, and each department only had 1 recordable OSHA incident for the year. And given the risks that police officers and firefighters face during the course of their jobs, they obviously routinely educate, train, and conduct exercises to improve their processes. And also, just because they have to be prepared to respond on a moment's notice, they keep their work sites clean and free of things such as trip hazards. They also conduct very fruitful after-action reviews of calls and also any use of force incidents, which are valuable learning sessions, both for themselves for implementing processes and safety, and also ensuring the safety of those they're interacting with. The safety leads in each of these departments are working with Steve Danielson to track those reviews better and record them as near misses, given the value they bring to fostering safety of both employees and the public. And I also just want to highlight the work of Assistant Fire Chief Mark Irvin, who's been working with the fire crews on the importance of reporting near misses, particularly when they're out on calls. And one incident that happened involved some fire response vehicles. They were staging at a gate. They'd received an alert of an aircraft coming in, and they were staged at a gate waiting. They had their emergency lights on, And ground personnel were walking between and in front of their fire vehicles, which obviously poses a significant risk because they need to take off at any minute, and they also have huge blind spots. So by reporting this incident, it gave us an opportunity to better educate the PDX workers about the risk and just better protocols they can put in place when they see emergency vehicles staged. So in closing, I'd just like to say that I support the planning and all the work of Assistant Chief Irvin and other managers who are executing plans to enable continuous improvement. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Beverly. Really appreciate the work the public safety and security team is doing to improve safety outcomes. And they're just a great crew, and I appreciate you coming up and sharing the message with us today. Commissioners, as you all know, because you participated, the approval last month of the Harbor Industrial contract with a few contingencies last month was a really important step for us at T6. As we've talked about many times, T6 is really, we set out a business plan dependent on 5 things. One is this harbor contract, which was approved by you. Second, maintaining strong, close relationships with both shippers and carriers. We've been doing that, and a really great service still with SM lines at T6. Third, commitment from you all, the Port Commission, to $5 million a year input from the port into the business to keep it afloat. Fourth, legislation and leadership from the governor to get $40 million of state funding for both channel maintenance and crane support at T6. And then finally, the last step will be resolving our labor issues in operations of those cranes and the facility at T6. That is the last piece that's outstanding. We're really encouraged that we're getting very close now to resolution. Appreciate your support. I'll say we are actively engaged as a team to make sure we can get this project over the line and get to resolution here this summer. Just want to thank you again for your support at T6. Several of us were out at T5 yesterday and meeting with some of the crews out there, and it's just folks are really feeling encouraged that the commission and the port are behind them in this work. And so I want to just thank you again for everything you've done to help us move that work forward. A few updates at PDX. First, we have new artists selected. Oregon artists James Lavadeur and Ryan Pierce have been selected to create large-scale public artworks at PDX to be installed in late 2025 and debut to the public early next year in 2026. Lavadeur's Conduit will honor our region's landscapes and indigenous artistic legacy, while Pierce's Liberated Luggage, which I find intriguing, will invite travelers to engage with the resilience and playfulness of our natural world. This is not about operations, Dan. I'm just thinking Liberated Luggage has a different meaning entirely for frequent travelers. We are actively expanding accessibility at PDX. As of July 1st, PDX now offers Aira ASL, a new tool that helps connect deaf or hard of hearing individuals with a live American Sign Language interpreter through their phone. It's completely free while on airport property, whether you're a traveler or airport employee. So really appreciate that partnership and the work of the operations team to bring that to PDX. And then finally, incredible flow of awards and recognition for PDX. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but it has been a pretty remarkable several months. But even the last 4 or 5 weeks, Washington Post named PDX the #1 airport in the 50 best airports in America. PDX is #1. The Daily Journal of Commerce called our PDX Next Terminal Core project the top project of the year. Fast Company gave us an additional 2025 World Changing Ideas Award. Prix Versailles out of Paris gave us an award for the world's most beautiful airports for 2025. Airports now, for a few of our partners and tenants, Airports Council International North America gave Oven and Shaker the Best New Full Service Restaurant Award, and Airport Food and Beverage and Hospitality Awards also gave Oven and Shaker an award for the best offer, best representing a sense of place. So I just want to thank port employees, PDX employees, union crews, and local makers, tribal partners, architects, everyone collaborating to make PDX what it is. It's been an incredible year. The team, the PDX Next team, is still hard at work. We're working toward a conclusion of the project in the middle of next year, and I'm just grateful for folks really making the magic of PDX come together and the recognition that we're receiving. So with that, Madam President, I'll conclude my remarks for the day. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations to everyone on the very well-deserved recognition. It's outstanding. Any questions or comments for Curtis? All right, can I get a motion and second for approval of the Executive Director's report?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Yes.
All right, we're moving into public comment. And as always, we appreciate the public comment that we receive. And we read the testimony that's submitted to us. We did receive written comments, commissioners, from Elena Rogozov, and we do have a new gentleman joining us this morning, Mr. Craig Sheets, to provide testimony. As usual, we do ask that we limit testimony to 2 minutes. However, Mr. Sheets has traveled a distance to come and join us. And so, Mr. Sheets, in recognition of that, will give you 3 minutes, and I will gently remind you when you hit the 3-minute mark for your testimony. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Concern, I'm sure, for everybody here, especially up north with all the woods. It's beautiful. Where I'm at's all concrete. You talk about buildings all day down there. But the easiest way to other nations getting us in a lot of jeopardy environmentally, as well killing us, is nuclear. And if there's a container with a warhead in it, you could see how many containers are at the ports. They stage there before they go out on freight trains. These freight trains are called hot shots. They're going through all these woods. I rode freight trains for 7 years. I loved it. Wish I was still doing it, but I know the layout pretty well. Studied it. So it's working out for my speaking pretty well. Nuclear goes off on the coast. The first thing that's going to happen is rain cycles, snow cycles are going to be done for a while. And if it's all the ports at one time, we'll probably never see it again. If there's oil affected with that radiation, it's going to do to all the ocean wildlife in the forest and the ocean life in the ocean. But the concern is they need to check these containers with a simple device, Geiger counter, scintillation counter. They've got the money to do it. It could be mounted on the cranes, pulling the container off. Could be mounted on the ground as the freight trains go by in the yards everywhere. It's not that difficult. I don't know why they're not doing it. Kind of gives me a worry that they might be in on it a little. I know you folks aren't. You got a simple little airport to control, and so my concern is the ocean, because we all need water, and I'm sure it's everybody else's concern. You agree with me on that? I imagine you would. And then as well, the trees are our oxygen supply, and if they get destroyed, it'd be a bad thing. And then the perfect spot for a nuclear warhead on the ocean would be the aftermath of the winds, air currents blowing in the radiation for the people that didn't get hit by the blast. That'd be the slow, miserable way to go. It's just ugly. So try to get people to get this going, and maybe we can get some safety going for everybody and the environment. I appreciate you guys letting me come up and speak. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. All right. Move to consent items. We do have 3 consent items. Does any commissioner want a presentation of the consent items? All right. I will read the titles. Number 1, authorization and designation of assistant treasurers. The second item is City of Tigard Enterprise Zone reauthorization. And the third item, City of Oregon City Enterprise Zone reauthorization. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the Executive Director's recommendation?
So moved. Second.
Any further questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Action items. We have a pretty full list, some meaty agenda items. And I'm going to ask Antoinette to introduce the first agenda item. And Travis too. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Madam President. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. We're here to talk about and seek your approval for a potential revenue refunding. As part of the finance team, just to remind you all, we are always actively managing our debt portfolio. And with that, as we look at the markets and identify opportunities for us to achieve some debt savings, if you will, we will come to you from time to time and ask for your approval to do so. So today we're in front of you talking about, and I'll turn it over to Travis here just a second, to talk with you about what we expect to achieve in terms of some potential savings on one of the refundings today and how it'll impact our portfolio. Travis is our Director of Capital Finance and Treasury, and he'll go over those highlights, talk about net present value savings and how that maps to our policy around our policy target. So, and talk a little bit about the financing timeline. So with that, I will turn it over to Travis.
Good morning. Is this working? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Travis George, Director of Capital Finance and Treasury, as Antoinette said. I think you can go to the next slide. Hopefully. There we go. So I'm here to request approval of Ordinance 484B, which will authorize the sale of up to $85 million in airport refunding revenue bonds. It's been about a year since I was here asking for authorization to issue bonds. That was the final funding of TCOR. And so, as Antoinette said, this is not that. We're not adding debt. We're here to issue bonds for debt service savings. Next slide. So just a quick overview of what we're doing. These bonds will refund Series 23 bonds. Those bonds, in turn, refunded Series 19 bonds. And this gets to the boring family tree of bonds that we have. But if you go back to the very beginning of this bond series, it was Series 19, and it actually funded the construction of this building that we're in. So we are now refunding those bonds for the second time. There's about 13 years left of amortization on these bonds, about $80 million outstanding. The refunding bonds will look very similar, just with a rate that provides debt service savings. And the savings is expected as of a couple weeks ago. These numbers were what the markets would suggest is about $5.7 million over those 13 years in savings, which is about 7.1% of outstanding debt service on a present value basis. And that compares to the 3% policy threshold that Antoinette mentioned. We have that threshold just to sort of make it worth going through the work of doing a refunding. And so we're obviously well over that. Having said that, we're not pricing today. And so the market does change, and that those amounts definitely won't be exactly what we see in the market, but we expect it to be fairly close. We're working with Jefferies, which is an investment bank as an underwriter that we've worked with before. We feel very comfortable with them and have a good relationship with them. We expect our ratings to not change. We're rated AA- by both S&P and Fitch. Very good, solid rating. Anything in the AA category is very, very good. So we're pleased with that. And next slide, please. So just a kind of overview of the timing. We're here obviously requesting approval today. We are meeting with the rating agencies later this month. We'll get the ratings back a couple weeks after that and post the POS so that Jefferies can help start marketing the bonds to investors. And then we plan to price the week of August 25th and then close the bonds a couple weeks later at the beginning of September. Next slide, please. So we are requesting approval of the executive director recommendation to enact ordinance 484B. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? Commissioner Johnson?
What's the premise behind the policy of 3%? And if the market degrades by the time you guys go out for pricing, what is the minimum above 3% you're willing to push forward with? So what if it's just 4%? Is it still worth pushing forward? And is, the 3% really a value proposition of, it's not worth it with less than 3%?
Well, I would say that if it, as an example, moved down to 4%, 7% is still $5.7 million in savings. So even if it was half of that, it's still a decent amount of savings on a deal that is going to cost us, I think, about $600,000 to issue. The 3% isn't necessarily a magic number, and it's sort of, I think, just kind of meant to be a little bit of a threshold to go through the whole process. In some cases, less than 3% would still pay for the bond deal. But it's just sort of meant to not have us be going down the rabbit hole of doing a new deal every time there's a little bit of savings.
Any other questions? All right, Travis, if you would read ordinance number 484B by title only. Or I can read it. I'll read it since I have it in front.
Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
From memory.
Let's see.
I can, if you have it.
I'm just following my script, sorry.
I apologize.
Here it comes.
Pam to the rescue.
All right. This is the fun part. I forgot about this part. All right. Ordinance number 484B, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale in one or more series of not more than $85 million aggregate principal amount of Portland International Airport refunding revenue bonds to refund outstanding Portland International Airport revenue bonds and to pay costs of issuing the bonds and to fund certain reserves if necessary, and for any other lawful purpose of the port, authorizing amendments to the port's Airport Revenue Bond Ordinance number 155 as amended and Airport Revenue Bond Ordinance number 323 as amended, and authorizing and providing for related matters and documents.
Well done. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the executive director's recommendation and enactment of ordinance 484B?
So moved.
Pam, we do need a roll call vote for this, so if you could call the roll.
Commissioners Koba,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lamb, Luther,
Aye.
Sumput,
Aye.
and Strader.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Christina, good morning. You get to introduce our next three items in whichever order you're going to do it.
Good morning, President Kova and Commissioners. Christina Kelchner, Chief Development Services Officer. And I'm actually going to do one introduction for all three items, and then you can hear from the team. So we do have three projects to tell you about today. These are all asset renewal projects. Not always the most exciting thing to talk about taking care of what we have, but critically important, obviously, for the experience of our passengers and maintaining our facilities. So these, all three projects are part of our regular program to maintain our existing facilities. And all three of these projects will serve the airport terminal at PDX. And will address things like electrical systems, HVAC systems, window walls, and revolving doors. So all important components to the passenger experience. All of our asset projects, asset renewal projects, are identified and prioritized based on our asset renewal program, which is based on a robust set of data about the condition, age, performance of our assets. So as you'll see in the presentations, these are all components that have been identified. It's time that they need to be replaced or rehabbed. All three of these projects, I wanted to point out, do benefit from substantial federal funding through programs created under the Jobs and Infrastructure Act. And we have been very successful in securing federal FAA funding for our asset renewal projects. And in part, that's because the team has done a great job of identifying opportunities to improve energy efficiency, safety, and operational resilience. So every time that we are looking to replace what we have, we're also looking for those co-benefits. So kudos for the team for really doing well in the federal grant programs. I wanted to note that some of the work will occur in the active operating portions of the airport, but we will phase the work to, as we usually do with our maintenance projects, to minimize the disruption to the public. And just finally, as a reminder, these items come to commission today with you sitting as your role as the contract review board for the port. So the specific request of the commission is for approval of the construction contracts associated with these projects, which have all been secured through our regular competitive bidding process. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sean Loughran, our Director of Planning and Development, and Dan Gilkison, our Director of Engineering, along with Alan DeKessian, one of our Senior Engineering Project Managers, to tell you more about the projects.
Thanks, Christina. Now I'm on. Okay, got that part figured out. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, President Coba. You know, Curtis's remarks this morning, he talked about celebrating all the new space that we're adding in the terminal, and all I can be thinking about is now that's all assets that we have to take care of, right? So we're adding hundreds of thousands of square feet in complex systems. And now that's all part of the asset management program that we work on with our teams. And that's really what we're talking about here today, is a lot of facility that's now 25 and more years old and needing to really make some investments to take care of those things. Again, Sean Loughran here with Dan Gilkison, our engineering director, and we've got 3 projects that we're going to talk about. Next slide. We're seeking approval to award a public improvement contract to PCL Constructors for the PDX East Emplaning Curtain Wall and Revolving Door Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $5.3 million. Next slide, please. You know, it really is, it's about aging infrastructure. It's about asset renewal, and it's about taking care of the things that we've made big investments of so they last as long as they can, that we maximize the useful life of all of these. And all the projects we're talking about today, in particular this one, we've got equipment that is increasingly unreliable, like the doors we're talking about, and parts availability becomes more and more difficult. We've got a maintenance team that is great in going out and getting the parts, but at some point in time, that just becomes exceedingly difficult to do. This is a really important public space, right? So we're talking about keeping that public space to be safe and comfortable for the passengers and employees that use it. This is a great picture to me because it's looking from the parking garage over at the terminal, and you see that whole eastern wall. And before there was TCOR, there was TAP. It was called the Terminal Access Project. And 25 years ago, if TCOR is the living room, this was the front porch, right? And so we made this investment. It brought the canopy, it brought the sky bridges, it added levels to the parking garage, and that window wall was a key piece of it. And that 25 feet of space that we keep even with TCOR is a key element. And that's what we're really talking about here today, is upgrading those features, Really, it's about weatherization to a large degree, but it does give us a great opportunity to pick up a number of other things. We're able to make some important accessibility improvements to the doors, and we're going to put anti-fragmentation film on the window wall. It's a risk mitigation strategy. In 25 years, you got to keep in mind most of this work happened pre 9/11. That threat landscape has certainly evolved over that period of time. And we have a number of projects that are aimed at hardening the infrastructure at the front of the terminal, and this would be one of those key projects.
Next slide, please. As Sean said, we'll be, is this on? Rehabilitating the everything around and inside of the curtain wall, replacing gaskets, seals, weather stripping, et cetera. Working on some of the drainage. If you recall, some of the leaks we've seen in the ticket lobby, we'll be hopefully addressing some of those as well. We are replacing 9 of the revolving doors and adding accessibility requirement or improvements to the south side of each of those door openings at the vestibules. Sean also said from sidewalk to ceiling, we'll be adding the anti-fragmentation film along the entire frontage. Next slide. Pretty good graphic here, I think, that demonstrates we'll be replacing all 6 of the doors on the end-planing level, adjacent to the end-planing roadway, and 3 of the more problematic doors at the deplaning level. The other remaining doors, we will utilize and salvage parts and pieces off of the doors that we replace to maintain and get some more life out of those doors as well. Next slide. Schedule is as shown here. We'll start construction this year and with the anticipated completion date by the end of 2026. And as Christina mentioned, we have been coordinating with Terminal Core as well as our operations team to minimize impacts to the traveling public to the extent we can. Next slide. Budget is as shown. As Christina mentioned, it's a combination of Airline Cost Center and grant funding, as well as about around 11%, a little over 11% contingency overall. As you can see there on the DBE participation, we were able to achieve the goal. So this translates to a little over $400,000 worth of small business participation. Next slide. Staff requests approval of the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you. Questions? We all look at Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Samad. We love that about you.
The FAA funding, is it secured in our banks, or is this something that will come in the future?
It'll come in the future. We basically, it's reimbursement agreements through the FAA. The funds have been awarded and confirmed. I met with the FAA as recent as last week, and we feel confident in the funding, but we do this through on a reimbursement basis as the work gets completed.
Okay, so we expect that to come through despite all the other speculation as to what might happen with.
Yes, we do. We're tracking it closely, and we have every expectation that the FAA funding will be there for the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion and a second?
I just have a really quick question.
All right.
Can you walk us through the personal service contract and the port staff contract services? Those are the 2 different line items.
Mm-hmm.
What are those?
If we want to go back to the budget slide, would that be helpful? Personal services contracts was awarded to one of our on-call architecture firms that I think we brought to commission approval of those contracts. Port staff is really the support team and administrative team that guides it through the design and construction process.
Okay, we good? All right, can I get a motion and a second for approval of the executive director's recommendation? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item, the air handling units rehab and replacement.
Taking up our second item, and we have Alan DeKessian, our engineering project manager. He's the project manager for the next two items that we have. Next slide, please. We're here to seek approval to award a public improvement contract to Piper Mechanical for the PDX air handling units rehabilitation and replacement project in the amount of $6.5 million. Next slide, please. It's a good time of the year to be talking about air handling units, air conditioning. Anybody that is traveling to our nation's airports this time of the year can appreciate that not all of them have done as good a job as others of keeping up with the quality of heating and cooling in their terminal building. And it's so important to maintaining a safe and comfortable space for our employees and our passengers. And that's really what this project is about. We have as Alan will describe, equipment that is very old for this. We try to address it proactively. The FAA funding that we've got is allowing us to really address some projects that otherwise would have been deferred for some period of time. With all of these, we do have the opportunity to address some efficiency upgrades. New equipment is just simply much more energy efficient than the older equipment. The majority of the work, as you'll see in the slide, occurs in the concourses, but a couple of key elements do occur within the terminal core footprint, which Alan will describe as well. What I'd say is with all of this, as we talk about the new space that comes to us with TCOR, that's really about half the total space. We got about 1.8 million square feet of terminal building that we have to take care of. TCOR is certainly making big inroads with that heating ventilation project as they look at ground source to make that, but we still have a considerable amount of space that we have to take care of in other parts of the building.
Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everybody. High level, the work scope breaks down into these three components. We're going to rehabilitate 22 air handling units serving the concourses, as Sean mentioned. We're going to replace completely 4 air handling units in the terminal. These are smaller units where it's just not cost effective to rehabilitate them. It's much more cost effective to replace them. And then we're going to add 2 new units, we call them mini splits, that will provide backup cooling to some critical electrical rooms. Next slide, please. As Sean mentioned, the work focuses on the concourses, but it's really spread out all over the complex. And that poses one of the significant challenges of this project and the construction team that's going to tackle it. There's going to be a lot of coordination with tenants, a lot of coordination with operations. Luckily, we have, over the years, we've utilized an HVAC design that pairs 2 air handling units together so that one can back up the other. You can shut down and work on one while the other one is still operational, serving most of the needs of the facility. So we have that going for us. Next slide, please. I think it's notable, in my mind anyway, the project team, our consultants and our staff really pulled a rabbit out of the hat in terms of the schedule. Because of the grant that we were pursuing, we had to compress probably 1.5 years worth of work to design and bid out not only this contract, the next contract we'll be talking about, and another contract, a third contract that doesn't require board approval. We took those 3 contracts from 0 to 60 in 8 months. So I really want to commend our staff and our consultants who put this all together. With your approval today, hopefully, we should be done with this work by the end of the 3rd quarter of 2027. Next slide, please. The way the project budget breaks down, of course, the construction contract, a little over $6.5 million, is the largest single item. But we do have personal services contracts, which provide the design services and commissioning services that we need from outside consultants. The port staff line item covers a lot of other things. It's not just salaries. It's things like permits all kinds of things that fall into that bucket. The contingency is currently at 1.7 million, which represents about 18% of the estimated costs. Given the fact that this is retrofit work in an existing operational facility, that's an appropriate level of contingency. The funding sources, as have already been outlined, we've got grant funds, significant amount of grant funding here. You can see 3.8 million out of an $11 million project budget, so that's significant. And primarily, since the work is all in the terminal, the airlines will be picking up the rest of the tab.
Hey, Alan, can I interrupt you for just a second? Would you go back to that port staff and contracted services line? Your point is a good one. I just want to follow up a little bit for Commissioner Lamb's question about what is that and why do we separate that out and allocate it to a project? It's important. I think would you just share a few sentences about the thinking about why we do that and why it's relevant as it's allocated to a capital project?
Yeah, like with any budget, there's an infinite level of detail you can go into. We could throw one number at you and say this is the project budget. I think what's important with personal services contracts to remember is that this is work that we are providing to the community. These are specialty firms, expert firms that we hire, for example, commissioning. It's not something we do in-house. Design, we sometimes do in-house, but for the most part, we outsource it. So I'm not sure if I'm answering.
Yeah, I'm actually on the next line, the port staff and contracted services. So as opposed to just we bring a budget forward that shows all the external costs, why do we include the internal costs in the budget?
Absolutely. It is I think it's an important factor for you to consider in your review and approval of our construction contract, to know that we have the proper funding and resources to manage the work. If we came to you with a project that didn't have any port staff in the budget, you might ask us, well, who's going to manage this? Who's going to make sure that we don't shut down the airport? So I think it's evidence that we have a budget that's adequate.
Christina, you want to come in and answer the question. You know where I'm going with this.
Because these services, the staff time is capitalizable, and so it can be charged against the grant, and it can be part of our capital asset management program.
Thank you. My question wasn't leading enough to Alan, but this is where I was going. There's a reason we put it to the project because it's capitalizable, and you can use bond dollars to do that. It is part of the funding that we get from those funding sources, including FAA and the airlines, as opposed to a port sort of a standing cost that we sit on. It's a capitalizable cost.
Yeah, so now that I'm tracking, thank you. I would like to add, if I can, that the line item, the 2.17 million, isn't just engineering and construction folks. It's everybody at the port that supports us. HR, legal, communications.
Contracts and procurement,
exactly. Shared prosperity. All the folks at the port that support our efforts, there's an allocation of that 2.17 million that goes to fund the rest of the team, not just folks like me.
Thank you for keeping me on that. Appreciate it.
And thanks for clarifying. So I guess, the last thing on this slide, the good news on DBE participation, because it's a federally funded project, we use DBE terminology, disadvantaged business enterprise. We set a goal at 5.2%, and the low bidder came in with a commitment to deliver roughly 2%, so almost 20% more than our goal, which is good news. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the port staff supports the executive director's recommendation to award this contract to Piper Mechanical for roughly $6.5 million.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Johnson.
Just a couple. On the 22 ones that you're going to rehab, what's the scope of those 22 versus the new ones you're going to install? So what are you actually doing to rehab them? And then maybe the second part of that question is, what's the new useful life of the 22 you're going to rehab versus the 4 that are going to be brand new?
Yes. Let me start with the useful life. Most of this equipment was installed, for those of us who were around and can remember, under the Terminal Expansion North Phase 1, Terminal Expansion North Phase 2 in the 90s, terminal expansion south, phase 1 and 2, and TAP going into the early 2000s. So it's already anywhere from 25 to 35 years old. The major units that we're refurbishing, once we refurbish them, I would project that we won't need to undertake this kind of work for another 20 or 25 years. It's very high quality equipment. We always buy the best and when we're doing this kind of work, and it lasts a long time. But I would also, as I've mentioned in the past, I think we talk about asset renewal. We should also talk about the human assets that we have, the maintenance department, the folks that take care of this equipment. They're experts at wringing, the last drop of life out of equipment. So I would project another 25 years. As far as the scope, it varies depending on the condition of the equipment. Some of it is replacement of fans, big fans, 40,000 cubic feet per minute fans with 40 horsepower motors. One of the biggest energy efficiency gains we're seeing is by replacing a single fan that serves the entire capacity of the unit. We can put in what's called a fan wall with maybe 4 fans.
Okay.
That with a 10 horsepower motor, and then we can stage up the number of fans depending on the load. So rather than running a 40 horsepower motor, maybe we can run 2 10s. That's where a lot of efficiency comes from. We're replacing the electronics that drive those fans, the variable frequency drives. We're replacing cooling coils that have fouled and been damaged over the years. And in order to gain heat transfer efficiency, you want to replace the coils. Another major component is the controls. The microprocessors, and then physical devices like dampers that vary the flow and mix of air between outside air and return air. Those are some of the major points of refurbishment, but there's some other things, door seals, some really mundane things that we're doing.
Okay, perfect. And maybe just a final question. This is more of a finance question. So you had a fully depreciated asset, so now you got to depreciate, and I'm assuming over another 25 years, does that depreciation start once this is complete, or how are you handling, because the project goes out to 2027. So are you going to start depreciating the new units as they come online, or you're going to wait till the project is fully completed?
We typically wait until we reach substantial completion. We'll have a discussion with our team in accounting to put some assets in place, typically at the end of the fiscal year. Is when we do that. So if we get to the point next June 30th, where we've accomplished significant work, we would put those assets into service at that point.
Awesome. All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? All right. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the executive director's recommendation?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. You're sticking around, please. All right, our final item is the public improvement contract for air handling. Nope, we just did that one. Public improvement contract for central utility plant electrical switchgear improvements. Say that 3 times fast.
I'm going to try. I think if it was up to Alan, we would have a large box of parts and we'd do kind of a show and tell for this. You'd have fans and all kinds of stuff here. We're seeking approval to award a public improvement contract to, next slide, please. Let's get the correct slide. Public improvement contract to EC Electric for the central utility plant electrical switchgear improvements project in the amount of $2.3 million. Next slide, please. Again, we're talking about aging infrastructure, but in this case, we've got stuff that's as old as 50 years old. So very significant. This is very much about reliability, safety, efficiency, and resiliency. The central utility plant right behind us is kind of the heart of the whole place. We've got 3 electrical feeds that go there. This is the equipment that allows us to manage that and to manage it in a safe and effective way. That electrical system is under increasing demand. So as we look to address our greenhouse gas goals, work toward net zero, we're increasingly electrifying new elements of the airport. You've heard about projects like our electric ground service equipment, certainly heard about the ground source project we're doing for T-Core, electrification of the rental car program. All these different things mean additional electrical demand, additional demand on the type of equipment that we're really talking about in this project today.
Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Oh. Okay, again, high-level breakdown of the scope of work. The key element in my mind is we're going to be replacing something called protective relays. We'll get into that a little bit more. We're also going to be upgrading the controls for this electrical equipment, and in one case, we're going to replace a piece of gear that's so old it just is time to go. Next slide, please. As Sean mentioned, the central utility plant, you'll see it on the right-hand side of the slide there. It's just east of where we're sitting today. It does provide all the power for the terminal, the headquarters building, RCC as well. There is now a new feed that goes directly to the terminal, so we have some alternatives. In the past, prior to that additional feed going to the terminal, every drop of juice came through the central utility plant. Next slide, please. On the far left, you'll see the protective relay device that we have currently. And there are dozens of these. These relays are monitoring voltage, current, frequency, all the parameters you can imagine around electricity. And they're safety devices. As the name suggests, they're protected. If the voltage goes up or the current goes up, if there's an unsafe condition, these relays are there to monitor that and signal the control system to do something about it. Open a breaker, shut down the circuit, do whatever needs to be done. They're electromechanical devices, though. They were installed anywhere from 20 to 30 years ago. And now the state of the art is the second picture from the left, a digital version of a protective relay. So what we get out of the digital version that we didn't have with the analog version is a lot of data. They're programmable, they're flexible. The electromechanical devices, you buy it and it does what it does. They're not reprogrammable. The digital versions, we can program them and we can extract a lot of data that's very useful for operations and maintenance. And then just to bore you a little bit more, the two slides on the right show the switch gear. There are two flavors. The 15 kV, 15,000 volt rating is the main incoming power from Pacific Power. The 5 kV, 5,000 volt switch gear, that controls our power distribution from our emergency generators. We have 4 emergency generators in the central plant. It just gives you an idea of the type of equipment, the scale of the equipment that we're going to be working with. Next slide, please. Schedule similar to the last contract. We had a very compressed design phase. This one's a little less scope of work, so it will be wrapping up sooner at the end of the first quarter of 2027. Next slide, please. The line item that we're discussing today, the construction contract, is a little over $2.25 million. We also have personal services contracts here, outside consultants that provided support. We have port staff and other services as well, $750,000, a contingency of $600,000, which is a little less than the 18% on the previous contract. It's about 17.6% on this one. For a total project budget just north of $4.1 million. This one, the port will be funding partially because the central utility plant serves the headquarters building, the rental car center, non-airline directly attributable costs. The total project budget over $4.1 million. The DBE participation. Again, good news. The goal was set pretty low. You might, some people might think, 2.7%. Well, this is highly specialized work. This is not the kind of work that you want small emerging businesses doing. So the goal was set appropriately, and the contractor exceeded the goal by a significant amount. 1.4%, that's almost 50% increase in dollar terms over the percentage that we required. Next slide, please. In conclusion, port staff supports the executive director's recommendation to award the contract to EC Company in the amount of roughly $2.25 million.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Johnson?
I think Commissioner Luther has a.
You're good? Oh, Commissioner Luther has?
She can go first.
All right, Commissioner Luther.
Thank you. So as we continue to digitize our infrastructure, cyber vulnerability is never far from my mind. So I'm just curious, as you start to digitize these critical infrastructure assets, whether there is a cyber analysis that goes along with your review, and if you could just tell me a little bit about that. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic question. That has become a major component of our discovery and design process. On this project in particular, the protective relays are going to be communicating with a power monitoring system that monitors a lot of other equipment throughout the complex, not just the central utility plant. The key point of vulnerability, the potential key point of vulnerability, is when you introduce an outside connection to that system. When you go from a quote-unquote air-gapped system where there's no connection to the internet, if you add an internet connection, that's where you really have to start analyzing the risks and putting firewalls and other operational measures in place. Password changes, all kinds of operational issues come up. Port IT is expert in this area. We have a team that focuses on cybersecurity. They are all over these systems. They have reviewed our plans for this project, and they've given us a green light to add these devices to that network. We have other systems, and I'll just key in to bolster your point, Commissioner Luther. With our fire alarm system, we recently had a situation where we wanted to introduce an outside internet connection to the fire alarm system. And after discussing and reviewing that with our in-house experts, we pulled the plug on it. We decided not to go forward because the ability to regulate or mitigate that risk just wasn't there. So it does come up, and sometimes we have to change directions on projects.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, I must have missed it, but the redundancy when you're doing this work and the risk to the airport, I think you said you had multiple feeds coming into the site. So when you actually get ready to execute this work, you have and I'm not talking about the emergency backup generators. I'm talking about a true redundant feed that's not tied to these switch gears.
So we have 3 utility feeds that come into the central utility plant. They come from the Alderwood, Killingsworth, and Pulley substations. They all connect, and I'd love to share the one-line diagram with you. I'm sure that would help us all understand, but we don't typically present electrical one. Yeah, Curtis is nodding. So yeah, a big part of the complexity is the cutover plan.
Right.
How we intend to take down a piece of gear, work in it, while other feeders continue to pick up that load. So without going into too much detail and putting Curtis into a comatose state, I would say that has been designed into the project. The process by which the contractor is going to go through and ensure that we have power where we need power while we're working on components.
Okay, that's perfect. That was kind of my leading question: is have we risk mitigated the work, because it is significant work and it has significant implications if it doesn't go right. So, but that's been designed into the plan.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would add, the electric is certainly one of the key components of our resilience program. And we have those 3 feeds that go into the central utility plant. But one of the things that we did do with TCOR was to bring in an additional electrical feed, the Kennedy, that comes in, gives us additional redundancy, additional power, but helps with resiliency. And we have a couple studies underway right now that are looking at that specific issue to see how we continue to improve it over time as we become increasingly reliant on that electrical grid.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sampat.
Sean, you mentioned that, we've got increasing demands on electricity, and certainly that's going to go up. And as we're putting this equipment in, I'm just curious as to where are we in terms of how many kVA we're drawing, and how much headroom will we have with this additional equipment, since we are putting all of this equipment in.
Yeah, I can speak generally to it. Maybe Alan can speak more specifically, but when I mentioned that studies that we're doing, one of them is a use case analysis. So we're not looking at just how much electricity we use today, but we're trying to understand what will be the demand for all the additional equipment that we expect to bring online in the next 5, 10, and longer time frame. So that's what we're planning right now. We're trying to understand, do the 4 feeds provide us enough power, or do we need to look at additional? We're also looking at things like battery storage, and we're looking at on-site renewables to be part of that. We know the on-site renewables really push us just for essential emergency service power during certain periods of time. We simply use too much power to have that be a viable source in and of itself. But at least that's the landscape of what we're looking at and trying to evaluate in terms of future need. I don't know if, Alan, you have anything more specific to amount of power and amount of additional capacity we have currently.
Yeah, I would just say that this project does not add any capacity, but I do remember when we came to commission for the Kennedy feeder, which is that 4th feeder that goes directly in the terminal, there was a study that backed up that project, and we could certainly get a hold of that study, and that would tell you, at least at that time, what our current demand and capacity was, and then what the additional capacity of the Kennedy feeder brought. So we can get you numbers to see how much capacity, excess capacity we have at this point. I don't have that number with me.
The main purpose of that was the ground source system, but it has sufficient power to meet a lot of other needs. And since that period of time, we have done the electric ground service equipment. We have done electrification of the rental cars. Those all come off of that cap.
Okay, well, I mean, since we are doing this work, it'd be good to know that we're maintaining headroom through the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks.
That does get analyzed regularly. I just don't have the current numbers.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, can I get a motion and a second for approval of the executive director's recommendation?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Colleagues, enjoy the heat, I guess. Take care, be safe. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned. Huh?